Hello and welcome to this course about VAT in economic. My name is Mille, and for the next hour I will tell you how to understand and control VAT in economic. We'll begin by taking a look at the course agenda. First, I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Mille and I work in the support team here in economic. This means that I am one of the supporters that you can get in touch with either through the chat or over the phone. If you ever need assistance with anything in the program, then we will be there to help you. What we will be looking at the course today. This course covers the basic aspects of the VAT in economic. We won't go into more advanced topics. Instead, we'll focus on general VAT and how it is managed in our sales and purchase workflows. So first, we'll dive into economic and explore the fundamental VAT setup. We'll look at some VAT codes and how they are interconnected and what to be mindful of when working with VAT. Next, we'll look at our sales workflow and how we handle VAT in sales. When making a sale, various scenarios come into play. We'll explore how to register a sale within Denmark's borders and also how to work with sales in Europe and internationally. Similarly, we will explore different scenarios when making purchases. We'll look at the registration of a purchase within Denmark, in EU, and internationally. After discussing how to set up and register VAT, we'll return our attention to gaining a good overview of our VAT. For this purpose, we have a report called the VAT statement, and we'll examine how to interpret it and why it is such a valuable report. Throughout the course, we'll also check the VAT statement to learn how our various bookings appear in this report. As the course nears its end, we'll also take a look at some other VAT reports that we can use. So that is the agenda for the next hour or so. So let's just go directly into economic. And I have created a standard economic agreement where I have simply created some customers, suppliers, and products. Additionally, I have chosen a default setup that serves as the foundation for our accounts, saving us from starting from scratch. It's a clean agreement in the sense that I haven't booked any entries yet, so we will be able to see the effects of the entries we make, especially in the VAT statement report, as you'll see later. The first thing we need to examine is the general VAT setup. To do that, I go to all settings up here, and then we go on the finance and then chart of accounts. Here, the entire chart of accounts is displayed with the respective VAT codes assigned to each account out here in this column. I can get an overview and see, for example, that if I book something on account 1010, it will use the VAT code U25 because it is preset in here in the chart of accounts. It's convenient to have this set up in advance in the chart of accounts, so you don't always have to remember which VAT code to use on which accounts. In economic, VAT is managed through VAT codes, as you can probably tell, and these codes are predefined based on the type of VAT and the rates that we use. To find these codes, we can click on VAT codes out here to the left. If you have chosen a standard setup, you will have these 10 standard VAT codes that you can see on the screen right now. For most users, these 10 VAT codes cover the needs as they handle both input sales and output purchase. Within the Denmark, EU, and abroad, so it covers all aspects of VAT. Looking at this page, we can get an overview of what the different VAT codes means. It specifies the type of the VAT code, which is important for the VAT statement, as you'll see later, as the type determines the section in which the VAT code appears, or the VAT appears in the report. Therefore, it's essential to use a VAT code with the correct type to make sure that it lands in the appropriate section of the VAT statement. If you need any additional VAT codes or do not use one of our standard setups, you can easily create a new VAT code yourself. We can do that up here by clicking on the blue icon that says New VAT Code. where we need to fill in some information. First, we need to choose a type up here, and there are 3 different types to choose from, and each type unlocks some specific rate types beneath here. So if I choose input purchase, then I only have 1 rate type to choose from, but if I choose output sales, then I have a lot of different to choose from. So the available rate types depend on the type that is chosen up here. I would like to create a VAT code for purchases in the in Europe, which falls into box A in the VAT statement. I therefore choose input up here, or purchase or reverse charge, and under here on the rate type, we choose purchased products EU rubric A. It's called. It's actually just box A in English, but in Danish it is called rubric A. So we choose this to make sure that we have a VAT code that I can use later on when I am going to book a journal entry where I want the VAT to affect box A in the VAT statement. We'll get back to all of that later and I'll explain it and show it to you. So don't get confused already. We just have to create this VAT code for it work later on. So I choose purchase products EU right here. Then I have to give it a VAT code. I will call it IVEU. Then we have to give it a name. I'll call it incoming. If I can spell. Purchase products EU box A. Then I know exactly what this is, what the purpose of this VAT code is. But the VAT code and the name is actually totally up to you what you would like to call it. Then we have to put in a rate, and I put it at 25%. And we have to put in an account and a contra account. I put in 6906 and 6907. If you are in any doubt of which accounts to put in over here, then you have to talk to your accountant about it, because it can be different from company to company. But this is the standard accounts that I'm using today. Then I'll just press save. So now you can tell down here that once I have my my new VAT code, I need an account where this VAT code can be assigned to. So we have to go back to my chart of accounts, and then I can create a new account, but to make it as easy as possible for me, I prefer to copy an existing account. So I choose to copy account 1320, as you can see down here. It is quite similar to the one to the new account that I need. So I'll just go on out here and press on the copy icon to make a complete copy of account 1320. Then I have to give it a new number because it can't have the same number as the existing one. I'll call it 1323. As you can see, I have a gap here. Or you can call it 132020, actually, there. And then we also have to give it a new name, and I'll call it Purchase EU Box A. Once again. Then we can choose our VAT up here. And if we go into here, you can see I have my new VAT code, IVEU, that we just created, that I want to be assigned to my new account. Then I can click save down here, and I now have my new account with my new VAT code, and I'm ready to use it in my accounting later on. So this is essentially how we link accounts and VAT codes and how the underlying setup works to make sure that we use the correct VAT codes for the correct charts or for the correct accounts when we are accounting. Another thing we need to take a look at when talking about setup is our system accounts out here to the left. This is because we can set up the system so it automatically takes care of some things in connection with VAT accounting. For the system to assist us, it needs to know where I want to book my entries. When I eventually report my VAT to SCAT, the Danish VAT authorities in Denmark, I can get the system to reset my VAT accounts for me. I do this by going in and choosing which account the amounts on my VAT accounts should be moved to. In this case, we are looking at this one called VAT settlement. And as you can see out here under number, it is empty at the moment. So if I marked my VAT return as reported, or my VAT statement report as reported, the system would not do anything automatically. Therefore, I need to edit this VAT settlement out here on the little pencil and set up an account. I'll cover how it works exactly in practice later, but for now, let's make sure that the setup is correct so the system can reset my sales VAT and purchase VAT accounts and move it to an overall VAT settlement account. In this case, I choose account 1617, which is called betalt moms or paid VAT. It is entirely up to you which account you choose, but this is the account where you want the due VAT to stay until you pay the money to SCAT. Additionally, I have to check this box up here called automatically book a VAT settlement to allow the system to book it for me later on, so we don't have to do it manually. Now we just need to choose a date down here for it to happen down here in booking date. I can choose to book it on the last day of the current period. I can choose to book it on the first day in the next period that comes after the one you are reporting at the moment, or I can choose today's date. I choose I want the VAT settlement to be booked on the last day in the current period. And I press save. Similarly, we also need to set up a VAT settlement rounding account. We do this down here, and as you can see, we go out here to the little edit pin. So here I have to choose an account where I want the rounding to be booked. That is because we can only report whole numbers to SCAT. So øre needs to be booked somewhere else in the system. Roundings need to be booked somewhere else in the system. So here you can use the betalt moms or paid VAT 6917 again, or you can create an account for it depending on your preferences. I would like to book the rounding on a different account than our betalt moms here. So I choose account 3628, which is just for fees. Additionally, I make sure to check the box up here, so this also happens automatically. So we've actually got the setup sorted out now. So let's take a look at our VAT statement before we are going to book a few entries. I find the VAT statement by going up here to the Reports tab. Then we have a whole section down here about VAT, and then we go into VAT statement. Then I'll just say for 2024 and the first half year and press OK. As you can see, it is currently completely empty. There are zeros all the way down here on the right, and that's because we haven't booked anything yet that affects the VAT statement. As I told you in the beginning, this is a clean agreement, so I have not booked anything yet. So of course there is zeros all the way down. Our VAT statement is structured to resemble the appearance of the VAT statement that you will see in SCAT when you log onto their site. So it should be easy for you to report the VAT in SCAT. Now that we have gone through the setup part, let's start looking at how we book our sales VAT. We'll regularly come back to the VAT statement to see how the entries affected the different sections down here. We manage sales under the Sales tab up here, starting with the Customers section out here to the left. As you can see, I've already created 3 different customers. It's important to note that sales VAT can be allocated to 3 different sections in the VAT statement, and these 3 customers will help me illustrate that. Let's begin by looking at the Danish customer. If I just edit that one right here, there we go. I have set this customer up with the VAT zone called domestic, which makes perfect sense. Similarly, I have set up my EU customer over here to the VAT code EU, So when I book something for this customers, I wanted to affect box B in the VAT statement that is called sales to other EU countries box. Lastly, I have my abroad customer or my foreign customer that I, of course, have set up to the VAT zone abroad. As I want this to target the box C that is called other sales without VAT in the VAT statement when booking entries for this customer. To conduct sales, we need to have some products. I have created a single product down here in product group 1. What actually controls the VAT on the sales part is the product group. So let's take a look at that. So we have one product in product group 1. If we go to product groups, we take a look on product group 1. Our product groups are structured in a way that if a customer with the tax zone domestic, the system will use the account specified under domestic for this product group. So in this case, it is account 1010 for the tax zone or the VAT zone domestic in product group 1. So when I sell to my Danish customer who is in the domestic VAT zone, it gets booked to account 1010, which is sales of goods and services with the VAT. If I hover over it, as I do right now, we can also see that account 1010 has the VAT code U25, which calculates a 25% VAT rate. So if I create an invoice for my Danish customers selling product number 1, there should be a 25% VAT on the invoice. If I sell the exact same product but to my European customer, we would instead look at the column EU over here because it's this customer's VAT zone. And the system would then use account 1025, that is called sales of goods to the EU. On this account, the VAT code UEUV with a 0% rate is applied, resulting in a 0% VAT on the invoice to my EU customer. Finally, for the abroad VAT zone, the system uses account 1020 with the VAT zone ABR, which also calculates a 0% rate. Due to this, I can sell the exact same product but to different customers and apply different VAT rates to the invoice and affect various accounts and my VAT statement based on the customer's VAT zone. It's a lot to take in, so let's try to book some different invoices for the 3 different customers and see how it affects our VAT statement. Let's start with the Danish customer to see how it looks when we make a sale within Denmark. So let's go ahead up here to invoices and create a new invoice. We choose my Danish customer, of course, and I make a new invoice line. We sell product number 1 for a price of 5,000 Danish crowns. And I press save down here. You can now tell that the unit price for the product is 5,000 Danish crowns, but the total adds up to 6,250. And that is, as you can tell up here, that there is a 25% VAT for that calculates for 1,250. And if we take a look on the invoice right here, the VAT is down here. We have a 25% VAT. Which gives us this total. And that is, of course, because the Danish customer is set up to the VAT zone domestic, which we just saw down in the product group. We have domestic, account 1010, that has a VAT code for 25% VAT. Good. If we go back to the invoice, and let's try to book it. So we just mark it and says book and send selected and book only just for this one. Good. Once it's booked, let's jump over to our VAT statement. Go all the way down here. I'll just search for the year 2024 in the first half of the year and press OK. Here we can see that the invoice has affected the sales VAT. I'll just zoom in a bit for you so you can actually see what's going on here. Yeah, so, oh, that was a bit much. There we go. So we can see that it has affected the sales VAT up here with 1,250, and it also affects the total charge amount down here, which is as it should. We can click on the amounts up here to see which invoice it is coming from. So you can tell that for this box to have a total of 1,250, that is because we just booked a customer invoice that has used this VAT code and has an amount of 1,250. Good. So normal sale within Denmark or domestic affects sales VAT, and it affects the total charge amount. So let's go back and try to create a new invoice for our European customer. We press new invoice. I choose my European customer, make a new invoice line. The same product. We still sell product 1. This time it's a bit more, it costs a bit more, so 6,000 Danish crowns, and we press save. You can tell up here that there is no VAT on this invoice. We have a unit price of 6,000, but also a total of 6,000. If I click here on show invoice, you can tell that there is a 0% VAT, and that is because our EU customer has a VAT zone that is EU. The product group down here, we have EU that uses account 1025. If I hover over it, you can see that it uses the VAT code UEUV, which has a 0% rate. So if we book this invoice, say book and select, there we go, book. We go back to take a look on the VAT statement to see how it affected the VAT statement. Same search up here. Now we can see that the sales VAT hasn't changed because there was no VAT on the invoice. However, further down here in our additional information under this one called sales to other EU countries, the full amount of the invoice, 6,000 Danish crowns, is stated. This way we demonstrate that we had a sales product or that we sold a product to a European customer for 6,000 Danish crowns, and that is exactly what SCAT would like to see. Once again, I can click on the amount to see what bookings have created that amount. Let's jump back to sales up here, and let's create one final invoice for my abroad customer. Once again, the exact same product. This time it costs 10,000 Danish crowns. Press save over here. Once again, if we take a look up here, you can tell that the VAT is still at 0. If we show the invoice here, once again, you can tell that there is a 0% VAT on the invoice. That is, of course, because the customer is in the VAT zone abroad. And if we look at the product group, abroad uses the account 1020, which is linked up to the VAT code ABR, which calculates a 0% VAT rate. Let's book it once again. Book. And then go back to the VAT statement. The exact same search. Once again, we can see that the VAT does not affect the sales VAT. It's still the same amount from the Danish invoice, but it appears once again under additional information under the box that is called other sales without VAT. Good. So to summarize, we've now tried making sales to customers in 3 different VAT zones, and we can see here where it affects the VAT statement. We have learned that the VAT zone communicates with the product groups. So under the product groups, we can see which accounts the sales will be booked on and which VAT codes it is registered with. So with a good setup of our VAT codes, accounts, and product groups, there aren't many hurdles in the systems and and the system helps us affect the VAT statement correctly. So these are affected by the domestic or the Danish invoice. This one affected by the European customer, and this one is affected by the abroad customer. Good. Sales can also be booked in another way, namely in the journal as a journal entry. This is especially useful if you have a cash register or something similar, where you need to book the daily sales as a single entry instead of creating invoices for each customer. For example, this is common for small shops that don't generate invoices for individual customers on the small sales, but instead book a total daily sale as a journal entry. You can try to do this by going to accounting up here and into our journal and press new entry. We would like to create a journal entry. It's my daily sales, so I would like to book it on account 1010, which is just sales of, it's a regular Danish sales with Danish sales VAT. Amount of 8,000 Danish crowns, and we have a country account that is 5820, which is our bank. And in text here, we'll call it daily sales. As you can tell, when I chose account 1010, it also chose a VAT code for me, and that is because account 1010 is set up to be linked to this VAT code, which is U25, which is exactly what we would like to use in this case. We can always tell down here in the bottom how much VAT will be booked from the amount up here. So it tells me that it will book VAT for 1,600 Danish crowns. We'll wait a bit before we are going to book it and then go back to reports and down here to VAT statement. Because here we actually have to check off this box that is called include non-booked entries. So it will include the entries that we have in our journal. This is super handy because it allows us to verify that my entries affect the VAT statement correctly before booking, which helps us to reduce errors, which of course we like a lot. Let's try to say OK here. Now we can see that it appears as up here in sales VAT. This is now a higher amount. By clicking on the amount here, we can see that our invoice from earlier and our journal entry up here with the different VAT amounts. We can see here that the entry hasn't been booked yet by the check mark out here to the left, allowing us to distinguish between what's booked and what's non-booked still in our journal. It's important to note that when we check the include non-booked entries tab that we did in the start, then the mark as reported button up here at the top disappears. So we need to uncheck the box here and load it again to have the opportunity to mark the statement as reported. We will just go back to the journal and book the entry because it looked just as it should. So let's book it right here. So that was 2 ways to book our sales, and whether you do it through the sales tab or through the accounting tab, we can impact the VAT statement by using the VAT codes. Now that we have looked at sales and how we affect the different sections in the VAT statement when dealing with sales, let's move on to purchases. We'll stay in the journal as this is also where we register our various purchases. Let's start by creating a purchase within Denmark. I've bought some office supplies that I'd like to book as a journal entry. We create a new entry, a journal entry, as I just said, and we'll book it on account 3600, which is just office supplies. Once I've chosen account 36100, it automatically suggests to use VAT code I25, which is what we would like to use in this case. We put in the amount, which is 5,000 Danish crowns. And we have a country account of 5820, which is my bank. And a little text, we'll call it office supplies. Once again, we can tell down here that what the VAT amount will be from the total amount. So we always can make sure that we are actually booking the correct amounts. Let's book it. Book entries, and return to the VAT statement. Here we can see that the purchase is reported under the purchase VAT right here. You can see the 1,000 Danish crowns out here and our journal entry right here. If it had an attachment, I was also able to see it here. So if I had some kind of receipt, I could attach it to the journal and I will be able to click on it and see it here in the VAT statement as well. Additionally, we can see that the total charge amount has changed. If we click on it, we can see that it contributes to the amount as well. Down here, we have our in customer invoice, we have our daily sales, which we also made before, and we have our purchase that we just booked, giving us a total of 1,850. Good. This is super easy and convenient as it's standard Danish VAT and can be recorded both with a journal entry or a supplier invoice. If instead we have a purchase in the EU or abroad and we want it to affect the VAT statement, specifically box A, which is this one down here, that is acquisitions from other EU countries, the purchase can be booked as a supplier invoice or a journal entry, and I'll show you both now. Let's start by taking a look at my suppliers. We do that under accounting and suppliers. And similarly to the customers, I have prepared in advance and already created some suppliers that we can use. Just like with the customers, suppliers also had VAT zones that help us control the VAT. The most important one to take a look at here is our European supplier. So we can correctly register the purchases from the supplier in the VAT statement. So if we edit a supplier, over here we have the VAT zone that is similar to what we saw under customers. And we can see that for the European or supplier, it is set to EU. And this will affect box A that we saw before, the one for accusations from other EU countries. So we set the VAT zone to EU. For my Danish supplier, I have set it the VAT zone for domestic, and for the abroad supplier, it is set for abroad, of course. So let's try to make a supplier invoice for my European suppliers to see how it affects the VAT statement. So let's go back to the journal and create a new statement. Or a new entry. We'll choose supplier invoice to make sure that we use the supplier. Type in a invoice number. We choose a supplier here. I can choose my EU supplier. An amount of 3,500. And a country account, which we set to 3,600. Which is again the office supplies account. And we will put in a text that is purchase of office supplies. There we go. We can see down here that the VAT code is automatically set to I-25 because of the account 3,600. But I have to change this to the VAT code that is IV25 since I bought the item in Europe, and to make sure that it affects the section that I want in the VAT settlement or statement, as we will see in a minute. So we make sure to change the VAT code. We can tell how much VAT it will calculate, and let's book it. Good. Let's take a look at the VAT statement once again. You know the drill by now. And we can see that something has happened. We now have an amount on the this one called VAT on goods purchased abroad. We have the 875 as we saw on the entry as well. This means that if I book a purchase in the EU or a third country, it will appear here. The same goes for the VAT purchase or purchase VAT output. It has also changed with 875. There were amount of 1,000 before. If I click once again, you can see that we have my EU purchase down here, my supplier invoice, but we also have the journal entry that we booked before as well. Good. If we take a look further down, we can see that it also affects our additional information, the accusations from other EU countries. Here we can see that it is the full amount that are stated here, and that is as it should be. SCAT wants us to state the full purchase amount and not only what the VAT was, so it has to state the full amount of the purchase. Yes. It is also possible to affect box A, the acquisitions from other EU countries, with a journal entry as long as we use a VAT code that has been set up correctly. We did that at the start when we created the VAT code that I called EVEU. So let's try to create a journal entry with this VAT code to see how it affects the VAT statement. Let's go to accounting, new entry. This time I choose a journal entry. We go for the same accounts. A lot of office supplies is needed here. 5,000 Danish crowns. Now we have a country account as my bank. And call more office supplies. There we go. And remember to change the VAT code up here to my new one, IVEU. And then make sure to save it and book it. If we go back to the VAT statement, just load for a bit, we can see that it also affected box A down here, where we now can see that our journal entry also is stated down here with the full amount, as well as in here in the purchase, it is also stated as well. So we can affect box A through the journal entry as well as the supply invoice. Then we just need to create a purchase abroad, and here it's also up to a personal choice, but I choose to do it with a supply invoice just to show you. So let's take a look at my supplier or abroad supplier. And as I showed you before, the VAT zone is set to abroad. Now we can make a new entry. Once again, I choose a supplier invoice. We give it a invoice number. We choose my abroad supplier. Give it a amount of 700 or 7,000, and a country account is one again 3,600. Again, a lot of office supplies. Here we go, and once again, we have to make sure to change the VAT code to IV25 to make sure that it is stated correctly. And I use this VAT code regardless of whether it is a purchase within Europe or domestic or abroad, because it simply needs to go in and out of the total charge amount. And the VAT zone controls which sections is affected. So if you have a European purchase or a abroad purchase, you use the same VAT code. Because the suppliers' VAT zones are set up differently, the system knows where to put it in the VAT statement, as you will see in a moment. So let's go ahead and book this. There we go. And back to the VAT statement we go as well. And here we can see that it appears on the VAT on goods purchased abroad, right here. We can now see that it is right here. As well as if we go down here to the total charge amounts, we can also take a look at this. Actually, this is affected quite a lot. Make it bigger for you, but most of the purchases in the EU goes in and out, which it has to, so it has to go in and out. So the total amount is not affected, but it goes in and out. There is nothing in the additional information since products outside the EU or abroad, according to SCAT, do not need to be stated in a section. This also means that products purchased abroad can also be recorded as a journal entry or be booked as a journal entry, as it is supplier management that determines whether the amount appears in this section or not. There are different things that we can do when we pull the VAT statement to give us a better overview of where the different amounts comes from, and maybe we don't want to click on each account all the way down into it individually as we have done so far. If I click the search bar down here once again and bring up the search fields, I have the option to click off this box called Show Basis. When we have that selected, in addition to our VAT statement, we also get a basis for each account and each section, as you can tell down here in the bottom. For example, my account 3600, as you can tell here, we have recorded both some purchase of goods from abroad, but we have also stated some input or some domestic input sales VAT. And this way we can get it specified directly in the VAT statement, but we can also pull this basis while checking the box for including non-booked entries, thereby checking which accounts are affected before we book anything. So this is a nice specification to pull once in a while to make sure that all the things that you have booked is actually has actually affected the correct parts that of the accounting as you would like. Now I am actually ready to report the VAT statement to SCAT. I have booked what I wanted and I'm satisfied with how it reflects in the VAT statement. So now I am ready to go to SCAT's website and report the VAT. As I mentioned in the beginning, we tried to make it as easy for you as possible. So the VAT statement here in economic closely resembles to the one to be filled out in SCAT's website. Therefore, it is easy for me to read the amounts in economic and report them over to SCAT or copy them over to SCAT. We have recently introduced an integration with SCAT that allows you to transfer and report the results from our VAT statement automatically. Manual entry of all VAT amounts on scat.dk can be time-consuming. With economic, all necessary information can be easily and quickly transferred with a single click. And this can save a significant amount of time and reduce the risk of errors that may arise from manual typing. With this feature, your VAT statement is automatically transferred to SCAT, where you then need to approve it, and it will finally be marked as report in economic. You can find it in economic under your archive afterwards, accompanied by a receipt confirming its submission to SCAT. If you are interested in setting up a connection between your economic account and SCAT, I recommend checking out our guide on Wikipedia. I can just show it to you. Let's take a look at it. One moment. Wikipedia, in here we have the SCAT here. Upsetting, yes. I will highly encourage you to take a look on this economic or this Wikipedia guide on how to set up the VAT transfer to SCAT. And here it will tell you exactly how to do it. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact our support team and we will happily assist you on how to set up it correctly. But here is a step-to-step guide on how to do it. Good. If you choose not to use the automatic integration, you must tell economic that you have reported your VAT to SCAT manually. It's important to understand that this one, let's just get it once again here, this tab marked as reported button does not report anything to SCAT if you haven't set up the integration. You need to do that yourself. What the button does is tell economic that this period we have selected has been reported. Let's try pressing the period or the button here. Then you can tell that a box pops up telling me that this will mark all entries included in the VAT statement as reported and move the report to the archive. Note that the VAT settlement will be booked automatically. The last part about automatic VAT settlement is interesting, and it happens because we have set up our system accounts at the beginning of the course. So let's try to cancel this for a moment, because I want to show you exactly what happens when it is marked as reported. To get the best overview of this, we need to get up here to the period total. So let's pull the period total for the same period as the VAT statement. It's the first half of this year. I believe that is what it is. And we'll focus on the accounts of interest, which are our VAT counts. So I'll narrow our search to the account 6902 to 6917. And then let's press OK. What we can observe here is that we have some sales VAT, some purchase VAT, and our European and foreign or abroad purchase, which essentially offsets each other, as you can tell out here. But this is how it looks right now when we view the various accounts where our VAT code is booked. Let's take a look at your accounts without the interest. Here we go. You can also tell that my account 6917, which we set up in the system account for the VAT settlement, is at 0 at the moment. But we will see shortly when I mark my VAT statement as reported, we will shortly see that these 4 accounts will be emptied, meaning they will be set to 0, and instead the amounts will be transferred to 6917, that is our VAT settlement account. So since we have configured the VAT settlement account to be 6917, this is where the total VAT amounts will be transferred to. So let's go ahead and do that to see how this transfer will look like. So let's go back to the VAT statement, pull the first half of the year, and let's mark the statement as reported and OK. Then a small window will appear showing us what will be booked in the system. It is quite helpful because this process happens automatically, so having an overview is quite nice. Additionally, at the top it indicates the entry number where it's been booked, allowing us to retrieve it later if needed. So let's say close once again, and let's return to the period total. And I'll search for the exact same here and the same account as before. And here we can see that the accounts 6902 through 6907 are now reset. They are all at 0. And the total amount is booked on account 6917. This is where the amount stays until I pay them to SCAT, because this indicates that I owe SCAT 1,850 Danish crowns. Once, if it is in minus. If it is in plus, then they owe me money, but we'll get to that later. All of this happens automatically, saving me the effort of making manual entries to move everything around. Now everything is reset and ready for the next VAT period, so I could start booking the new VAT. The VAT amount from the previous period will stay on account 6917 until we pay it to SCAT. And we actually need to manually book the payment of the VAT. This is done like any other expense by creating a new journal entry that debits 6917 and credits the bank. So let's try that. Let's see, journal here. We put account number 6917, our VAT settlement account. We have 1,850, which is what we owed SCAT. And then we put our bank here at the country account, and we'll just call it paid VAT. There we go. And save, and let's book it. There we go. If we then go back to the period total here, we can now see that our account 6917 is also at 0 and is now reset. So we have reset all our VAT accounts for the next period, so we are ready to get a new period going, and we have also registered all the previous VAT. So there's not much magic in this part. It's booked just like any other expense. There are also other reports besides the VAT statement that we can use when dealing with VAT in economic. For example, we have a report down here called VAT or called archives. All the submitted VAT statements are stored in the archive. Here we can access and review them if needed. In case I made an error in my VAT statement, maybe selected the wrong period or accounted any other issue, I have the option to undo the last reported statement. I can do this by clicking on undo marked as reported out here. This action can only be performed on the most recently reported period in the archive. If I click the button, all the system entries made when I marked it as reported will be reversed, allowing me to continue working on the VAT statement. I can later mark the VAT statement as reported once again when I'm ready and I have made my changes. If, for instance, I realize later on that I forgot to book an entry during the selected period, let's say I discovered an additional receipt that I forgot to book, it's fortunate that we can still go in and register it afterwards, making it a part of the VAT statement. So let's create a new entry to see how that works. And you can't believe it, but I have actually bought some more office supplies. So we'll just create a journal entry, account 3600, an amount of 250 Danish crowns. Country account is our bank once again. And we have more office supplies. And we have a VAT a VAT code I-25 because this is just a Danish purchase. Oh yeah, purchase within Denmark borders. Good, let's book it. Now we can now what we can do is go back to our VAT statement, and we'll have the option. We'll just do this. And here we'll have the option to click on the recalculate button up here. Before I click it, I'll just would like us to read the top text up here. It says, amounts with asterisks or stars includes entries that have not yet been booked. If we look at the amounts out here to the right, there's a star next to our purchase VAT as well as our total charge amount. This comes from the entry that we just booked. So if we click out here, we can see that, okay, I actually have the entry that we just booked on 50 Danish crowns, which is booked after the period is marked as reported. So if we click up here on recalculate, it will show me what I need to report to SCAT. It will show me what or the difference between what was reported before I marked it as reported and what is booked afterwards. What I would do now is go to SCAT's website and update with the reporting and then mark it as reported once again here in economic, and then everything will be up to date. We also have the option to carry it forward to the next period if it's just a small amount as this one. This is only 50 Danish crowns, which is not a lot. So SCAT won't have a problem by us reporting it at the next period. So it will automatically be considered in the next period. I select in the VAT statement as the system can determine which amounts still needs to be reported and include them in the next period. So if we take the second half of the year and say OK, we can see that the 50 Danish crowns is already set in here because it knows that the system knows that I did not mark it as reported in the last period. But if I want the system to ignore entries that haven't been reported in previous periods, I can check the box exclude non-reported entries from previous periods. However, if I want them included in my next period, I should avoid checking this box. So let's look at some of the other VAT reports that we have out here to the left. So let's take a look at the VAT detail report. And of course, we are looking at the same period. There we go, and say OK. This report is primarily used to verify if what I have booked actually appears correctly. It is especially useful as a tool for troubleshooting. And the report can be a bit confusing at first, so let's start by looking at what it actually shows. On the left out here, we can see the accounts that we have booked on. Additionally, it displays the value excluding VAT for each account all the way down. So let's take account 3600 that we have used a lot as an example. It shows that for this account, I have posted or I have booked a total amount of 19,700 Danish crowns, excluding the VAT. Out of the 19,700, 15,500 of them are booked using a different VAT code than I-25 that the account is actually set up for. This doesn't necessarily mean that it is incorrect or I have booked something wrong, but it just alerts me that I have booked something differently than what the account is configured for and what the system expected me to do. If I click on the amount here, we can show the entries. Here I can get an overview of, if we just make it a little bit bigger, there we go. I can get an overview of the entries that created this amount. We can see that this is our purchases within Europe and abroad as well, which is correct, as for these we should use a different VAT code than I-25. So now I know it is not wrong, and I can close it down and make sure that, okay, everything is done correctly, but the system made sure that it alerts me that something was booked differently than what was expected. Out here we can also see the booked VAT, which is essentially how much of the VAT or of the value excluding the VAT that has been VAT, which the report tells me is 4,925. Next to it is the estimated VAT, which assumes that everything was posted with the VAT code that the account is set up for, and therefore with a 25% VAT, because the VAT code I-25 is set up to a 25% rate. So the booked VAT and the estimated VAT is, of course, the same, or you can tell out here that the difference is 0 because everything has been booked with a 25% rate. If we have something in the difference, it is because something has been booked on the account with a different rate than the 25% that the account is set up for. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong, but it helps provide an overview so that we have the opportunity to investigate whether it has been an error or not. The last report that we will take a look at is our sales to EU customers report. We look at the same period here. There we go. Good. In this report, we can see all the sales that we have had to Europe. And SCAT requires a list of our transactions in Europe, and we can obtain this list here. I can click up here on download file for reporting, which we can attach in SCAT's system. As you can tell, there is an exclamation mark here that indicates that some information is missing. If I hover over it, it states that it is not valid because it lacks certain information. Fortunately, we can still fix this as the missing information can be added to my customer setup. So currently it tells me that I am missing the country and or a VAT number for my European customer. This can be fixed by going up here to sales and then customers, then editing the European customer, and make sure that we type in a VAT number. So let's do that. It's a company registration number. Let's type that in here. There we go. And we also need to type in a country. So let's set this to Germany and press save. Yes. Once these pieces of information are added, we can go back to the sales to European customers here. And let's take a look at it. Now it has stated the VAT registration number as well as the country code. And now I'm actually ready to download the file and upload it to SCAT's website. When searching for this report, I also have the option to include non-booked entries, and I have the option to show details. Showing details gives us the opportunity to see which invoices has been generated, allowing me to open and review them if I desire out here. And with that, we have actually covered all the points of the agenda for this course, and it concludes the course. If you have any questions about what we have covered in this course, feel free to reach out to our support, even through over the email, chat, or phone as displayed here on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.